The night everything changed. Sarah had been on the phone for what felt like hours. Her husband, Mark, sat in the armchair flipping through TV channels, half listening as she paced the apartment, her free hand animatedly waving while she chatted non-stop. She was on a conference call with her old classmates, ironing out the final details for their upcoming class reunion. It was a big one, an anniversary of sorts, and her excitement was unmistakable. She practically glowed as she spoke, reliving inside jokes and reminiscing with people she hadn't seen in years. Mark watched with quiet amusement, waiting for her to wind down. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Sarah flopped onto the couch with a satisfied sigh. Phew! That's that. Everything's squared away, the tables are booked, and now I can actually relax. Mark scooted closer, wrapping an arm around her. I'm amazed you guys still get together after all this time. I haven't seen any of my classmates since graduation. Sarah smirked, her eyes twinkling. Oh, come on. We had the tightest class ever. I can't wait to see everyone. Just don't go too wild with the drinks, okay? Mark's tone shifted slightly, a hint of concern creeping in. Sarah rolled her eyes. Oh, please, Mark. They had been together for almost 8 years, met in college and were inseparable from that point on. In the early days, life was all about adventure. Road trips with friends, hitchhiking to the beach, hiking with nothing but tents, and hitting up clubs whenever they stayed in town. Those years had been wild and carefree. Then came marriage, and with it, the idea of settling down. Mark landed a steady job and began climbing the corporate ladder, determined to provide for their future. Sarah, however, wasn't ready for children yet. She wanted to focus on herself, explore her passions, and make a name for herself in her own field. First it worked, but then something shifted. Sarah began craving excitement again. The nightlife, the spontaneity, the sense of adventure that once defined their relationship. Every weekend, she invited Mark to come along, but he had outgrown the late-night clubbing and bar hopping. He preferred quiet evenings at home, unwinding after a long workweek. So Sarah found a new routine. She went out with her girlfriends instead. Mark didn't mind. He trusted her. He only ever asked for a simple courtesy, a call when she was heading home, so he could either pick her up or send a taxi if he was still at work. That Saturday she was off again, this time to celebrate a friend's birthday at a water park. Mark, opting for a quiet night in, invited his sister, Emily, over. Emily was a bartender who worked nights, so she usually slept all day. She only arrived at Mark's place by the evening, still a little groggy but happy to catch up. Sitting in the kitchen, they sipped tea as Emily shared her usual hilarious stories about the customers she encountered at work. But tonight Mark seemed off. He was quieter than usual, thoughtful. At one point, he set his mug down, took a deep breath, and lowered his head. You know him. I'm a little worried. Emily raised an eyebrow. About what? Sarah's always out with her girlfriends. We hardly see each other anymore except after work, and that's not much time together. Sometimes. I think maybe she's just not interested in spending time with me anymore. Emily hesitated. You think she's purposely avoiding you? Mark exhaled, rubbing his temple. I don't know. It sounds dumb, but I can't shake the thought. He studied his sister's face. If you got bored with your husband, what would you do? Emily gave a short laugh. Hard to say, I'm not married. He paused, thinking. But I guess I'd either have an honest talk about it, or if it was really that bad, I'd walk away. Mark nodded, absorbing her words. Emily hesitated, debating whether to say more. She and Sarah had never been particularly close. A few years back, they'd had a falling out at a family gathering. Sarah had too much wine and made a snarky remark. Emily snapped back, and ever since then, Sarah had kept her distance, offering only frosty greetings. Still, Emily wanted to be supportive. Don't stress too much, Mark. Things will work out. Maybe plan something fun for the weekend. Take her out of town. Remember that lake we used to visit as kids? Mark brightened. That's actually a great idea. She's got that class reunion on Friday night. Maybe Saturday morning I'll surprise her and take her up there. Emily smiled. Perfect. Mark made up his mind then and there. He booked a lakeside cabin, envisioning a peaceful retreat. Just the two of them, reconnecting after all her socializing on Friday. He had no idea everything was about to unravel in the worst way possible. The reunion that ended it all. Friday night rolled around. After work, Sarah swung by the house to change before heading out to the restaurant at 8 p.m. She was buzzing with excitement, finally reuniting with people she hadn't seen in ages, people who reminded her of the carefree days she missed. Meanwhile, Emily arrived at work for her evening shift at the bar, only to discover that Sarah's class reunion was being held there. Immediately, Emily recalled Mark's concerns. She decided to keep an eye on Sarah from a distance. The place was lively. Music, drinks, laughter. Sarah sat near the back, deep in conversation, seemingly having the time of her life. Then, a man slid onto a bar stool in front of Emily, ordering a strong drink. He looked contemplative, lost in thought. "Emily," he said, reading her name tag. "Do you think, if you loved someone years ago, like another lifetime ago, and those feelings suddenly came back, is it worth giving it another shot?" Emily, used to hearing drunken musings, answered casually. "Real love doesn't have an expiration date. If it was ever real, it's still there somewhere." The man's eyes lit up. He grabbed his drink and walked straight toward Sarah. Emily watched in disbelief as he leaned in, smiling, obviously flirting. Then he guided Sarah to the dance floor, pulling her close. Emily froze. Oh God, what have I done? Sarah wasn't resisting. She was enjoying it. Panicked, Emily discreetly recorded the moment on her phone. His hands roaming over Sarah, her smiling, leaning into him. Then, she sent it to Mark with a single message. "This is happening right now." Mark read the text. He didn't reply. Less than 20 minutes later, he walked into the restaurant, his expression dark. Sarah and her dance partner were gone. Mark asked around. A classmate, laughing, pointed toward the restrooms. Seconds later, a loud shriek rang through the venue. Then scuffling. A man stumbled out of the hallway near the bathrooms, his pants half undone. Mark stormed after him, dragging Sarah by the collar of her blouse. The entire room froze in shock. Security rushed in, peeling Mark away from the man. Sarah stood there, crying, mascara smudged, humiliated. Her reunion was ruined. Her marriage was over. By morning, Mark had tossed all her belongings out of the house. Later he learned the truth. Sarah and that man had dated in high school. A long-dead fling suddenly rekindled. It didn't matter if it was a drunken mistake or something brewing for months. Mark didn't stand for betrayal. He filed for divorce immediately. As for Sarah, the man disappeared back to his wife, leaving her alone. She stopped attending reunions, drowning herself in clubs and meaningless flings. Eventually she remarried, this time to another party lover. But she never felt secure. She obsessively checked his phone, always wondering. Because now, she knew exactly how easily a marriage could crumble.